Something just happened deep inside the Congo that researchers struggle to explain without sounding unbelievable. A tribe was found doing things that challenge everything we think we understand about fear, pain, and even death itself. These people burn their dead inside rooms they sleep in and still live there. Some spend their entire lives guarding strange objects that killed people just for looking at them. Others go as far as stealing eagle chicks with bare hands and turning them into hunting partners. These tribes exist right now. Some of them are being contacted for the first time as you watch this. And what they do in the dark, inside forests, will leave you completely shocked. The Bayaka. In 1973, a young anthropologist named Barry Hewlett arrived in Congo for the first time. He had read about the Bayaka. He had studied what the textbooks said. Nothing prepared him for what he saw in his first week in the forest. A man was 60 feet off the ground, barefoot, bare-chested, with no rope and nothing between him and the forest floor. Hewlett stopped walking. He stood there watching, chest tight, certain he was about to witness a death. The bees had already found the man. They were covering his arms, his neck, his face, driving stingers into his skin by the hundreds. He did not swat them away. He did not flinch. He kept climbing because the honey at the top of that tree was sacred, and the forest does not reward hesitation. The Bayaka are one of the oldest surviving peoples in the Congo Basin, with a presence in Central Africa stretching back thousands of years. They move through the forests of Congo, Cameroon, the Central African Republic, and Gabon in small nomadic groups, building nothing permanent, leaving no trace. They do not conquer the forest. They dissolve into it. What stopped Hewlett cold had nothing to do with honey or trees. It was the fathers. He found that Bayaka men spend more time in direct physical contact with their infants than fathers anywhere else in the world. When a mother is absent and a baby cries, the father pulls the child against his bare chest and offers his nipple for the infant to suck on, not to feed the child, just to silence the fear inside it. No other culture on earth does this. Then there is Jengi, the forest spirit the Bayaka fear above everything else. When a member of the community dies, the body is buried inside the hut and the hut is burned to the ground. The group moves immediately. No one is permitted to look back at the burning structure. Anyone who turns to look is seized, tied to a post erected beside the fire, and left standing there through the night until morning, not as punishment, as a warning to the forest that the rule was enforced. During Jengi initiation ceremonies, young men are taken into the forest and confined inside a structure so small they cannot sit or bend. They stand upright for days without rest, without proper food, in complete darkness, while sounds designed to represent the spirit moving around them keep going through the night. They go in as boys. If the forest accepts them, they come out as something else entirely. The Bayaka carry no written records. Every poison, every cure, every ritual lives only inside human memory. When their elders die, entire libraries vanish with them. In the deep villages of eastern Congo, there are men who carry human skulls on their bodies every day. Not hidden, not buried, pressed against their skin, held close, spoken to. And to the Lega people, this is not disturbing. It is the highest honor a living man can carry. The Lega have a secret society called the Bwami, one of the most layered and complex systems of power ever documented in Central Africa. You do not join the Bwami. You spend your entire life trying to earn your way through it. The society has multiple levels, each harder and more demanding than the last, requiring years of sacrifice and demonstrated wisdom before any advancement is given. The higher a man climbs within the Bwami, the closer he is believed to be to the world of the ancestors. At the very top levels, that connection becomes physical. Members at the highest ranks are given the skulls of deceased elders to carry with them daily. These skulls are not symbols. According to Lega belief, they transmit knowledge, protection, and judgment directly from the dead into the body of the man holding them. He is not displaying power, he is conducting it. The ritual objects of the highest Bwami ranks are called Lukwa Congo. Women, children, and uninitiated men are completely forbidden from seeing them. Not discouraged, forbidden. A woman in one documented case accidentally glimpsed a Lukwa Congo during a ceremony. She was stripped of all social standing. expelled from her family unit, and according to accounts collected by researchers, was made to undergo a purification ritual so physically brutal that she did not fully recover. The boundary between the initiated and uninitiated is not a social line. It is treated as the line between the living and the permanently condemned. Belgian colonial authorities recognized that the Bwami held more real power over Lega communities than any external government ever could. They spent years trying to dismantle it and failed completely. Western collectors then moved in and stripped villages of their ritual objects, dismantling the spiritual structure of entire communities overnight. The Bwami still operates. Initiations still happen. And right now, in eastern Congo, there are men carrying the skulls of their ancestors against their skin, walking through the world with the dead pressed against their bodies, and finding nothing unusual about it at all. Before a Kazak child is old enough to hunt, they are already learning how to hold a golden eagle. Golden eagles with wingspans wider than a grown man is tall, talons built to crush bone without effort. The child is placed in front of the bird. They are not shielded from it. The parents watch and they do not intervene, because they went through the same thing. Their parents went through the same thing. For over 4,000 years, this is how it has begun. Falls happen. Lacerations from talons happen. A child gets thrown from a horse during training and the parents help them back up and put them back on. There is no discussion about whether to continue. Injury is not a reason to stop. It is confirmation that the training is real and that the child is being prepared for something real. The Kazakh eagle hunters, known as burkitchi, have practiced this tradition across the frozen steppes of western Mongolia, where temperatures collapse to -40 degrees and the wind strips the skin raw. Golden eagles are used to hunt foxes, rabbits, and wolves across open terrain, and the process of building that partnership is brutal from the very first moment. The hunter climbs into a cliffside nest hundreds of feet above the ground, reaches in while the parent birds attack, and takes a chick by hand. That is how it begins. The chick is then kept awake for days. Not hours, days. It is carried constantly on the hunter's arm, spoken to, fed only by hand, deprived of sleep until it begins to accept the hunter as the only source of safety and food in its world. This process takes months before the bird is considered anywhere near ready to hunt. A fully trained hunting eagle exerts over 400 pounds of pressure per square inch through its talons. When it catches prey, it does not retrieve it. It drives it into the frozen ground and holds it there, motionless, until the hunter arrives to finish the kill. For centuries, this tradition was entirely male. Then girls began competing and began winning. At the annual Golden Eagle Festival, female hunters have outperformed male competitors repeatedly, and the tradition has not collapsed around it. It has grown stronger. After years of hunting together, the hunter releases the eagle back into the wild and walks away with nothing. No trophy, no replacement bird, just the memory of what was built and deliberately let go. In a place this brutal, that kind of discipline is not romantic. It is the whole point. When researchers asked one of the most respected anthropologists who had spent time with the ache what they were like, his answer was immediate and unqualified. He said, "This is exactly how humans lived 30,000 years ago. Not similar, not close, exactly." He had watched them move, hunt, divide food, and make decisions, and what he saw was not a remnant of something old. It was the thing itself, still running, still intact. As recently as the mid-20th century, there were people living in the forests of eastern Paraguay in a way almost identical to how humans lived 30,000 years ago. No villages, no farming, no stored food, small groups moving silently through dense jungle, hunting everything they needed, and disappearing before the forest even registered they had been there. The ache were studied intensely by anthropologists because they were the closest living window into how prehistoric humans actually operated. Researchers who spent extended time with them came back fundamentally unsettled by what they had witnessed. Ache hunters moved in small groups and communicated almost entirely through hand signals while tracking prey. No talking, no unnecessary movement. The level of coordinated silence they maintained was compared directly by researchers to what fossil evidence suggests about hunting groups from tens of thousands of years ago. Every animal caught was divided equally. The hunter who made the kill received the same portion as the oldest member of the group and the youngest child. Nobody accumulated more. Nobody went without. This was not generosity. It was the system, and it had worked without modification for thousands of years. Their knowledge of the forest was not expertise. It was something closer to instinct built over generations. They knew which trees held fruit in dry season, where honey was hidden, how to track a monkey silently through the upper canopy for hours, and how to treat a deep wound using only what was growing within reach. All of it lived in memory alone. Nothing was written down. Nothing was drawn. Everything existed only as long as the people who carried it stayed alive. When contact with the outside world finally came and the Ache were pushed towards settled life, something broke inside the community that researchers watched happen in real time. Men who had spent their lives as the most capable hunters in the forest found themselves completely unable to function inside a society built on individual competition, private ownership, and permanent settlement. The disorientation was total, and it was documented in detail. The elders still teach tracking and archery. The stories are still told. But the forest those stories describe is almost gone, and the people who knew it best are running out of time to pass on what they know. The Azande. In Azande society, nothing bad happens by accident, not one single thing. If a man dies suddenly, something caused it. If crops fail, someone made them fail. If a child gets sick and does not recover, there is a name attached to that sickness. There is always a name, and the Azande have a system for finding it that has been destroying lives for centuries. The Azande live across Congo, South Sudan, and the Central African Republic. In the 1920s, British anthropologist E. Evans Pritchard spent years among them and came back with findings that disturbed the academic world. He said their witchcraft system was not superstition. It was internally logical, carefully structured, and more coherent than most outsiders were willing to accept. He did not say this from a distance. He watched it work. On one occasion, a man in the community reported that something had been stolen from his home. No witness, no evidence, no confession. In any other society, the matter would likely go unresolved. Among the Azande, it did not. A diviner was consulted. The rubbing board oracle was brought out, a small wooden instrument carved and treated with medicine that operates by sliding one piece of wood across another. A name was proposed. The oracle was asked whether this man was the thief. The wood stuck. That was the answer. The verdict was delivered to the community before the accused had any idea a question had even been asked about him. Evans Pritchard watched the man's face when he was told. He watched the community's reaction. Nobody questioned the method. Nobody asked for further evidence. The oracle had spoken, and that was the end of it. Evans Pritchard came back from this and other cases saying the same thing. The system was airtight, not because it was always right, but because it was designed so that it could never be proven wrong. Every result confirmed it. Every failure strengthened it. At the center of it is the Benge oracle. Benge is a poison made from a specific plant, prepared through ritual, and fed to a chicken in front of witnesses. A yes or no question is asked about guilt or innocence. The chicken either dies or survives. That is the verdict. There is no appeal, no second hearing, no way to challenge the result. The accused does not need to be present. A man can wake up one morning to discover that a chicken died the night before in a ritual he knew nothing about, and that the community has already decided he is responsible for his neighbor's death. By the time he hears about it, the verdict is already final. Once identified as a witch, a person does not just lose reputation. They lose everything. Their land is taken. Their family distances themselves to avoid contamination. Their children are watched with suspicion for the rest of their lives because the mangu, the physical witchcraft substance believed to sit inside the body near the liver, can be inherited. Your father's verdict becomes your starting point. Evans Pritchard documented cases where accused witches were killed not in anger or chaos, but in calm, unhurried community agreement. The way a group of reasonable people might decide to remove something dangerous from a shared space. The chiefs controlled the most powerful oracles. That one fact explains everything. Witchcraft accusations were not just spiritual matters. They were the most effective political weapon available, and the people at the top used them without hesitation to remove anyone who threatened their position. The oracle never failed, and if it ever appeared to, there was always a ready explanation. Another witch had corrupted the poison. The answer was still right. It was just being interfered with. There was no version of events in which the system could be wrong, and that is exactly what made it so devastating. When someone dies in an Embuti camp, the body does not leave the hut. It is buried right there, inside the same walls where the person slept and lived. Then the hut is set on fire. Before the ashes cool, the entire group is gone. They do not look back. They do not return, ever. The Embuti are one of the oldest peoples of the Ituri rainforest in Congo, among the shortest populations on Earth, most adults standing just over 4 feet tall. But they move through one of the densest and most dangerous forests on the planet like they were born inside it, because they were. They do not farm. They do not keep animals. They hunt with nets, gather plants, and read the forest entirely through sound. A specific bird call tells them something is wrong. A branch snapping in a certain direction tells them which animal just moved and how far away it is. The forest speaks to them in a language no outsider has ever fully learned. Their shelters are built in a few hours from leaves and branches, never meant to last. The moment a place stops serving them, they leave it behind without a second thought. Permanence means nothing to the Embuti. Movement is survival. Their rules around death go further than most people expect. When someone dies in the forest, the place is left immediately. No long mourning, no return visits. The belief is simple. The forest does not just take the body, it takes the person completely. Staying near that place is not seen as respect, it is seen as a risk. The spot is avoided because whatever caused the death is thought to remain there, not as a memory but as a presence. Something that can happen again to someone else without warning. People who ignore this are said to fall sick soon after, not always in obvious ways. Sometimes slowly, sometimes without a clear cause. Locals describe it as the forest taking what it was already owed. And then there are the ones deeper inside. Not stories, not myths, people. Groups believed to be connected to the Embuti, living beyond where anyone is meant to go. No paths lead to them. No one can point to where they stay. They appear without warning. A shape between trees. A figure standing still, watching. And then they are gone. No sound of movement, no broken branches, no tracks left behind. Anyone who tries to follow loses direction almost immediately, as if the forest closes in and erases the way forward. When the Embuti are asked about them, they do not laugh it off. They lower their voices. They speak about them carefully, like something that should not be disturbed. Something that is better left exactly where it is. The San people of southern Africa have been living in the Kalahari desert for at least 70,000 years. Agriculture was invented 12,000 years ago. Writing is 5,000 years old. The San were already fully formed, already hunting, already surviving in one of the most punishing places on Earth long before any of that existed. They are not a remnant of the past. They are the longest continuously running human culture on the planet. Their hunting method is not fast. It is not aggressive in the way most people imagine. It is something far more unsettling. A sand hunter fires a single small arrow into an animal and then follows it, for days, across terrain that has killed trained and equipped explorers, covering over 30 miles in a single pursuit, reading crushed grass and disturbed sand and the specific shape of a hoofprint in dry earth, until the animal's body finally shuts down from the poison spreading through its blood. That poison is harvested from the larvae of the Diamphidia beetle. It is applied to the arrow tip in a thin coating and works by breaking apart red blood cells from the inside. A scratch is enough to start the process. There is no antidote anywhere in the world. The hunter does not rush the animal. He follows it patiently, reads its decline in the tracks it leaves, and waits for the moment it stops. Water in the Kalahari is buried underground in ostrich eggs cached at locations that exist only inside human memory. These locations are passed down verbally from parent to child across generations. If the people carrying that knowledge disappear, the water becomes permanently lost. The desert takes everything back. Their click language uses sounds produced at multiple points inside the mouth simultaneously, sounds that exist in no other language on Earth. Linguists have classified it as one of the most complex phonetic systems ever documented. During the Great Healing Dance, the community moves around a fire for hours until specific individuals drop into a trance state called Kia. In Kia, healers report physically separating from their bodies, entering a realm they describe as both more real and more terrifying than the waking world, and returning carrying something they extracted from the sick. Some healers come back from Kia screaming. Some cannot speak for hours afterward. The physiological trance state has been confirmed by researchers. What happens inside it has never been explained by anyone who has not experienced it themselves. The Boa. When Belgian colonial officials reached the oriental province of Congo in the late 19th century, they were not soft men. They had documented war, famine, and tribal violence across the continent. But what they found among the Boa and their neighboring peoples stopped their expeditions completely, and the reports they filed back to Brussels used language that career officials almost never used. They were shaken. The Boa practiced ritual cannibalism, openly, without apology. This was not starvation. There was no shortage driving it. This was a deliberate, structured, ceremonially conducted warrior tradition built on a belief system with its own clear internal logic. When you defeated an enemy in battle, the highest thing you could do was consume them, specifically the heart and the liver. The heart because it was considered the source of courage, the liver because it was believed to carry the life force itself. Eating both meant pulling everything that made your enemy powerful permanently into your own body. You did not just defeat him, you absorbed him. Captives taken in warfare were not simply killed and eaten. The process was ceremonial. It was conducted in front of the community. It followed specific rules about sequence, participation, and purpose. Colonial records, missionary accounts, and early anthropological field reports all document this consistently and in detail. The skulls of consumed enemies were kept afterward and displayed inside homes. Before future battles, warriors would sit with these skulls and consult them, treating them as concentrations of captured power that grew stronger with every victory added to them. Status within the community was directly measured by the number of skulls a warrior had accumulated. What the colonial officials could not process, and what comes through in their reports with unmistakable discomfort, was the total absence of shame. Nobody lowered their voice. Nobody presented it as something unfortunate or necessary. It was a tradition, discussed with the same openness and pride that any culture uses when speaking about the things it considers honorable. The colonial response was not measured. Villages were burned. Communities were destroyed. The force used to suppress the practice was, by the evidence of the same official documents that recorded it, responsible for far more deaths than the practice it was targeting. For the Boa, eating a defeated enemy was not a violation of his dignity. In the framework they had lived inside for generations, it was the deepest acknowledgement of it. You consumed what you respected most. The Tarahumara Raramuri. Inside a canyon system 4 times larger than the Grand Canyon and far less mapped, there are people who run 100 miles through mountain terrain without stopping. They wear sandals cut from old car tires. They eat dried corn, beans, and chia seeds. When they finish, they are not destroyed. They are standing upright and ready to go again. The Raramuri, whose name means those who run fast, are the Tarahumara people of northern Mexico's Sierra Madre Mountains. Running is not sport or recreation for them, it is the architecture of how their society functions. The villages across the Copper Canyon are separated by terrain so steep and distances so vast that running is the only reliable way to communicate, trade, and maintain connection between communities. It has been this way for as long as anyone can trace. Children begin running before they are taught anything else. Community games involve kicking a wooden ball ahead and chasing it for miles across jagged mountain trails. Starting from the age they can walk steadily. By the time a Raramuri child becomes an adult, they have already covered distances that professional endurance athletes spend entire careers trying to reach, and they have done it without a single piece of specialized equipment. Their diet would alarm any modern nutritionist: corn, beans, chia seeds, and water. No supplements, no recovery food, no strategic eating windows. Exercise scientists studying the Raramuri have publicly struggled to explain how the physical output they produce is physiologically possible on that intake. The data does not match what sports science would predict. In the 1990s, Raramuri runners entered competitive ultramarathons for the first time. They arrived in tire sandals and ordinary clothing. They finished at the top against athletes in gear costing thousands of dollars. The professional running world has not fully known what to do with that information since. Their ceremonial races, called Rarajipari, run for up to 48 hours continuously across mountain terrain. These are not athletic competitions. They are religious events tied to agricultural cycles and community survival. Runners have been documented continuing through injuries that would end any professional athlete's race, because stopping is not culturally framed as an option. What the outside world has never successfully replicated is not their endurance. It is the fact that their endurance is not separate from their life. It is their life, built into every day from birth, and you cannot extract it and transplant it somewhere else. The Komo. There are men in certain villages across Congo who have spent their entire lives maintaining something most people will never be permitted to see. They were cut open to enter the society that gave them this responsibility. The scars on their bodies are not decorative. They are binding, and the objects they tend have been accumulating power by their reckoning since before anyone currently alive was born. The Komo is a secret initiation society with presence across Congo and parts of Mali. Membership is entirely male. Its internal structure has never been fully documented by any outside researcher, not because access was never attempted, but because the society has historically responded to unauthorized proximity with consequences that ended the attempt permanently. To enter the Komo, a man is scarified. Specific patterns are cut into his skin in a process that is not quick and is not meant to be painless. The scars are permanent. They mark the man as bound to the society in a way that cannot be negotiated away or undone by any external authority. The objects at the center of Komo ritual life are called boli. They started as small cores of wood or clay. Over the decades, they have been fed continuously. Blood pressed into them, grain worked into their surface, organic matter added layer by layer until they became dense, dark, and heavy in a way that has nothing to do with their physical size. According to Komo belief, a properly maintained boli is not passive. It has specific needs. It has specific capabilities. It can protect or destroy depending entirely on the knowledge and intention of the person directing it. Documented accounts collected by researchers describe men who inherited boli without initiation becoming severely ill within days of taking possession of them. Several did not recover. According to the Komo people, these objects are not representations of power. They are power, and an uninitiated person who looks directly at one will not survive the experience. The knowledge of how to manage a boli safely exists only inside the initiated. It is transmitted through the initiation process and nowhere else. A man without that knowledge in proximity to an active boli is, by every account available, in immediate danger from the object itself. French and Belgian colonial administrators identified the Komo in their official reports as the single greatest obstacle to establishing control in affected territories. The society crossed village boundaries, crossed ethnic lines, and created loyalty networks that no colonial structure could penetrate or replicate. Decades of attempts to suppress it produced nothing. The Komo still operates. The boli still exist. Right now, in specific locations across Congo, there are objects that have been accumulating blood and matter since before anyone currently alive was born. The men who tend them know precisely what they are doing. Everyone else is not permitted to know anything at all. The Sami. Above the Arctic Circle, the sun does not rise for weeks during winter. The land becomes a flat, white silence stretching hundreds of miles in every direction. Researchers and explorers who have entered this environment unprepared have documented complete psychological collapse within weeks. The isolation does things to the human mind that are not easily reversed. The Sami have been living in this environment for over 10,000 years, and for most of that time, the world around them has been actively trying to make them disappear. The Sami are the only indigenous people officially recognized in Europe, living across Norway, Sweden, Finland, and the Kola Peninsula of Russia. What they have survived to still be here is not a quiet story. It is one of the most sustained and deliberately cruel cultural erasure campaigns in modern European history, carried out not by ancient conquerors, but by 20th century democratic governments. For most of the 19th and 20th centuries, Norway, Sweden, and Finland ran coordinated state programmers specifically designed to destroy Sami identity. Sami children were taken from their families and placed in residential institutions, where speaking their language resulted in physical punishment. They were beaten for saying words their parents had taught them. Traditional clothing was banned in public. Practicing their customs was treated as a criminal matter. These were not rogue actions. They were official government policy, funded by the state, running well within the lifetimes of people still alive today. Many of those children never came back as the same people who left. Some never came back at all. The Sami language survived. The reindeer herding survived. The Yuak, their vocal tradition in which a song does not describe a person but becomes them, carrying their identity forward even after death, survived. The Gakti, their traditional clothing that functions as a complete information system communicating family, region, and community status to anyone who can read it, survived. But the land is still being taken. Mining companies and wind energy developers are currently pushing onto ancestral Sami grazing territory. The legal battles have reached international courts. The governments that spent the last 2 centuries trying to erase the Sami through cultural force are now trying to finish the process through infrastructure and resource extraction. 10,000 years of survival and the fight is still not over.